Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to take another look at the front page. We're going to pimp out the categories and difficulties bit, as well as move some stuff around, as well, just general UI work. And we're going to put a search bar on the navigation bar here. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to move the endpoint from the tricks controller to the submissions controller, because I don't want to, we're going to do this stuff for the categories and difficulties. I don't want to replicate that endpoint multiple times. So let's go ahead into the tricks controller, and where we have our best submission endpoint, let's go ahead and cut it. We're going to go into the submissions controller, and somewhere below here we can go ahead and put it here with the best submission prefix. It should override this ID endpoint. And here, another thing that I will do is I will just say trick IDs, although I will reuse that. Let's say by tricks. So this is a filter that we will supply, and the reason why you will see in a minute. But what we will do is we will basically say grab our trick IDs from the by tricks, and we will split it here. We'll split it by the semicolon character because it's quite easily encodable in the, basically it doesn't need to encode in the URL, and it's quite easy to supply. So once we're here, let's go ahead, grab the include, and then all we want to say is just tricks ID contains, and we just want to supply the trick ID in there. Okay, remove the other bit that we have in there. The rest of it stays still, right? So if we supply one trick ID, we get the best submission from the trick. If we supply multiple trick IDs, we get the best submission from all of those tricks, okay? So that's how that's gonna work. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead into our front page trick feed. And what we're going to do is we're going to change the endpoint here. So this is now going to point to submissions, and it's going to point to best submission. And by tricks is going to be the separator, and actually we can just put tricks log here, right? So one item in the list, it should still essentially work as it does now, right? So refresh it, same thing. Now let's do the same for the categories. A couple of things that we'll need to take care of, but let's first of all go to the front page folder here. We can open it up. Let's go ahead, copy this, and we'll just rename a couple of stuff. So instead of trick, we'll put category, right? Again, just grab the name and make sure we change the name here for the component. A couple of, I mean, we can just go ahead, highlight the trick here, rename it, and everything that has the trick in it, we can go ahead and rename it to category, and that should be fine. The tricks, if we just grab everything, and again, I don't think we want that last one, so let's go ahead and just select these ones. So I'm pressing Alt J if you're using Writer. It's next selection. And categories, I believe these are called within the list. So I think if we just check real quick, categories, right? So that's the thing in there. Again, all the slicing, everything works kind of the same. One actual thing that I wanted to fix, or not fix, like clean up. Let's just go ahead, grab this. We'll do const trick requests, and we'll put it here, right? So we'll just take it out because, I mean, I think it will be just a little bit easier to understand what it is. Let's come back to the category feed file. We'll just quickly do the same thing here. So const and submission requests. I believe these are actually submission requests, right? So we're gonna jump back there to rename. So if you are wondering how I'm jumping between the files like that, so if you look here, these are kind of next to each other. So I'm using Alt back and forward to kind of ping between these files, right? So in here, just rename submission request to submission request. This is in the trick feed, and just leave it alone now. Going into the category feed, what we want to do is the category should contain a list of IDs to the tricks. So a category points to the tricks, right? Let's go ahead into the front end here. If we take a look at our view plugin and we take a look at the base state, if we take a look at the list, categories, and the categories should have the tricks, right? All of them are null at this point, and that's because we're not including it when we're retrieving it from the endpoint. Let's go ahead into the category controller, and where we grab all of our categories here, let's go ahead and make sure that we want to select something, which is going to be a category view model. So the time has come. Let's go into our view models. We are just gonna copy the category trick view models, and we'll just rename it to category view models. Okay, you can see comment view model is named just model. Let's just put an S on the end there to be more consistent, and the review model as well. Let's put this here. Okay, cool. Let's close the review and the comment. So category view models. Let's go ahead, just grab the name real quick, put it here. Most of the stuff, let's go ahead and remove it. We will keep the create and just rename this stuff to category. This to category as well, where it says trick. Just pop it to category, remove the slug, difficulty, description stays, all of that stuff, remove it as well. And then category, we can take a look at the things that we have created, deleted. I'm not really that interested in that, I don't think. Let's go ahead, just into the tricks, ask variable. Remember that this is a many-to-many table. So in here, what we want to do is we want to go select trick and the slug, right? Since that is what we're using. And then here we'll just map it to tricks, right? So there's our view model. Let's go ahead, grab our category view models. We're just gonna pop it here. So projection, should have probably imported it, could have been a little bit easier, but that's essentially what we're gonna do here. And just make sure that we change this to object. Okay, now that we got that, if we come back to the front end here, let me exit the mobile view and I refresh here. What we should see in the list and categories, if we take a look, at least one of these maybe should have the array. Let me give this a hard refresh. Which one's the flip, mid transition? And okay, so let's just quickly go into the index store where we did the fetch tricks, and let's just go ahead and console log the categories just to make sure that where the error is happening. If it's just not updating the state here with the plugin, that's the problem. Otherwise, okay, so you can see here the tricks should be popping up, and they should be in here somewhere. Okay, so array. Okay, so it is there. So it is the plugin lagging a bit, so don't 100% rely on it sometimes. It's better to just console log stuff, something like that. All right, but anyway, we have the slugs for which we want to fetch our best submissions. That is the whole point. Let's remove the console log here. Let's pop back to the category feed. And the way that we've done this here, what we want to do now is we want to kind of aggregate the slugs from our categories into this filter here, right? So let's go ahead and create a const, and we'll say by tricks, and we'll go into maybe not categories, maybe it should be just a function. So we're going to supply a category. In category, there's going to be a bunch of tricks, and we want to reduce it where we're going to have a first one, the second, or the next trick, the previous, and the next. And all we want to do is just basically say, right, just put these together, a semicolon separated, and then when we go to assign this by tricks parameter, just supply the category in there, and that should, create the semicolon separated list of tricks. So that's that. I think we renamed all the other stuff. Let's go ahead into the index page. So I think we can go ahead and remove all of these sections. This computed part, we don't really need it. This div right here, we don't really need it. Let's go ahead, copy this, put it here, and the front page category tricks, let's go ahead, put this here, and there we go. So the imports, just remove that one that's dangling there, and the header categories, right? And let's just refresh here. So the problem that occurs here is that some categories just flat out don't have tricks, so we have nothing to reduce. What we want to do is go back into our category feed, and where we did the mapping here, Let's go ahead and put this into a function. Somewhere about here. And what we want to do is we want to say if category tricks length more than 0, if we have them, go ahead and actually return these, okay? Otherwise, we don't really need to do anything. There could be a question about what if we only have one trick in a category. That means we will probably want to supply a default value here as well. So let's just do that. Okay, here, let's go ahead and give this a refresh. And type error is not a function, array reduce. So the problem that I did here is this is just C# land, where you put it at the beginning, and JavaScript you put it at the end, right? So there we go, right? So category, cool. We don't get other categories, we only get the one. So what we actually want to do is, otherwise, if we don't have any submission to catch, just the thing that we do here where we append the submission, we don't need to actually append it and destructure the category. Just put the category here, and the if statement should take care of should we display the submission or not, right? So otherwise, we just put the category there. So let's go ahead and give this a refresh, and there we go. So we got our kick, so we still get the navigation, the best submission, we still got that, and we can still navigate to the thing, right? Let's go ahead and take care of the difficulties as well. So let's go ahead and just close everything, because, you know, there's just too much stuff in there, you don't know where to look. Just close it all. Let's copy the category feed because it's going to be a little bit closer to the difficulty. So let's go ahead and name this to the difficulty. You can see that bastard thing in there again. Let's go ahead, delete it, and I think it should be in the category as well. Yeah. Okay. So on the difficulty feed, I think everything is pretty much the same. Let's go to the category here and difficulty. We're just going to rename everything to difficulty. Press escape. Yeah, so that renames the key as well. What we want to do here is grab things from the difficulties, and probably was a better idea to rename all of these occurrences. Yep. So all these difficulties, just rename them. And pretty much the same thing should happen, where the difficulty, we should be able to grab the tricks of the difficulty. So this C right here, let's just rename it to D. We'll put a little bit of space here. And I mean, the difficulty still gets pushed on there. Now, remember the thing that we had to do with the category controller to include the tricks IDs. The same thing happened with the difficulties, where it's actually missing that array of tricks. So let's go to the difficulty controller, where we have all of our difficulties. Let's just go ahead, put this here. We'll add a humble select, and let's go ahead where we have the category view models. Let's just copy it, remove the copy. Difficulty view models, grab the name, you can rename it, change the types, rename the original name, you know. The bit here will change, so the tricks, that is just the singular trick, so we can just go ahead and grab the slug, and that should work fine. Anything else we want to grab from the difficulty? Check it. Not really, right? So one thing here, just to like not to run into errors and stuff like that, what we're missing is a foreign key relationship. So if we look on the difficulty, we have a mapping to trick, but trick just looks at difficulty, right? So because it's not following the naming convention of EF core is not actually aware that there is a foreign key somewhere in there and that these are related in some ways, right? So we want to say that this is the foreign key for the difficulty. Let's go ahead and open up the app.db context, and in here, let's just copy this bit here. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's configure the difficulty. And what we're going to say is that the difficulty has many tricks with one, right? And when we say with one, we just say the trick has one difficulty. And then we say it has foreign key. What foreign key do we have? Description, right? So description is the thing that lives on the trick. So now that that's configured, we're actually going to get the tricks here when we convert the difficulty, when we're trying to query the difficulty table, we're actually gonna get the trick of list and their IDs, right? So let's just get our difficulty view model in here, projection, and there we go, right? So easy. I think everything else should be exactly the same. Let's go ahead and check this out. I think we just didn't put it on the index page, so let's go ahead on the index page. Again, same thing. Let's just copy this, put it here. Say difficulties, and then we'll say front page difficulty feed, close it off, and just like that. So scrolling down here, you can see something is missing. So let's go ahead, take a look at the console, refresh it. We should be definitely getting a submission or two if we go into hard. Nope, maybe, nope, no, and medium, maybe definitely easy. That's definitely a key somewhere in here. So this is easy, this is medium. So, oh, undefined, and undefined, okay. So the navigation is slightly undefined. Let's go ahead and actually fix this up, right? So close all of these and let's open up the front page category in difficulty. So on the difficulty, we don't have slugs, we have IDs. So let's place these here. And on the category as well, let's just place ID. And on the difficulty feed is where we're not getting the things that we want. So on here, again, we're gonna go to the index store where we fetch the tricks, and we're gonna just console log the difficulties that we're getting. So just give this a full refresh so we can inspect the console. Here we'll just see that tricks are 0 everywhere. So what we're going to do is go into the difficulty controller, and we're just gonna say, all right, actually, you know those tricks? Let's include them and see if that does anything. So we gotta wait a little bit for the reload, and let's go ahead and refresh this. So that didn't do anything, did it? Let's go ahead and take a look at the difficulty projection. Should be definitely getting that. The difficulty controller definitely executes this endpoint. Let's see, are there any errors in the backend? No, there aren't. Let's double check that in the AppDB context we have correctly configured this thing. And I've put description here. So actually, let's go ahead and put difficulty here. Let's go ahead and see if we don't need to do this include. Give this a refresh. Crash the first time. Yep. Let's give this another refresh. And yeah, so we don't actually need the include. Let's just remove it from there. But in here, you should see that we are actually getting this stuff. So now that we have this stuff, I know it's a little bit underwhelming of how we only got sort of one trick showing. So let's go ahead, work a little bit on our seed to, you know, give it a little bit more substance, like, because we want to display more stuff. Let's close all the windows. Let's go into program. And here what we're going to do is, if we got the fake counter, yep. So let's just grab a trick. Let's copy it. We'll scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we'll just do a for loop. For the upper bound, we're gonna have a fake counter. Put the var here, and let's take the trick out. Put it here, and we're gonna add the trick here. So we're just gonna reuse the trick because we're gonna be adding a little bit of submissions. What I also did before the video is just to save a little bit of time is I've added a third video, right? So this third video, I'm just going to plan on using it for the submissions. Go ahead and add another video to use for this use case, right? So let's go ahead and edit this a little bit. So on JavaScript land, just put I here, another fake trickery trick. Make it fun. I active, yep, version 1 description. This is a really fake trick number I. Difficulty, we can interchange that, and category, we should interchange that as well because we want to fill it in different things. Now, how do we interchange it? So this is I mean, it's pretty neat, right? I'm not gonna lie. Let's just go ahead and do it. So let's just grab all of our difficulties. So we're gonna have a new list of difficulty, right? And let's just go into column select mode. Let's grab all of this stuff here, Control X, escape to cancel, and maybe home here, comma, right? And comma here, or actually a semicolon here. And add range, and we're gonna add difficulties, right? And later on we can reuse that stuff. So same thing we want to do here. So with the categories equals new list, list of category, and then we want to populate it with these ones. So go ahead and just pop these here. Select maybe about yay much, comma, and then add range, categories. Exit column select mode, and there we go. So we have our difficulties in a list now that we can point to them, kind of thing. All right. So how does this help us? Well, now if we go back down to the trick that we're trying to seed, what we can do is we can basically say for the difficulties, grab me the difficulty. What's it called? The difficulty ID, right? So the ID is going to be the name, but the point here is that we're just going to modulus the index by the count. So we're always going to go through, we're going to basically round robin distribute difficulties for the fake tricks that we are creating. Okay. And I mean, you probably guessed it, we're going to do the same thing here. So again, we're going to go into categories, modulus, categories, count, and select the AD. Okay, comments everywhere here on the end, and that's it. So this is gonna seed a bunch of tricks, and for each one of these tricks, I mean, let's go ahead and the trick ID here, let's just offset it a little bit. Maybe we didn't need the offset. Let's just omit the ID altogether, and then for the trick, do we have submissions on here? We do not. Let's go ahead and just let's grab one of these submissions that we add here. We'll take this. We'll put this here. The comments. Let's remove the comments. We're only interested in the votes because we're going to be selecting the best one. The video and the thumb. Just rename it to 3. That's the thing that we're interested in. All the other stuff can still benefit from the fake submission. Let's just put something like this in here so we can distinct between the other fake submission. And for the trick ID, let's just go ahead, grab trick and supply the slug here. And let's go into context and save changes, right? So this should give us a bunch of random tricks with a bunch of submissions with a bunch of different amount of votes, right? And we're going to distribute them in different difficulties and categories, so they're going to appear in those bits as well, right? So we got that. Let's go ahead, close this. Let's go ahead, take a look at how this looks like, right? So give this a refresh. Refuse to connect, obviously. A little bit of time to seed. And I'm hoping it hasn't broken. So argument out of bounds, program CS line 208. So on line 208, let's see. Okay, so we're probably going over the board here. So specifically, does it say which one? 208 is the whole thing. So list generics. Okay, so one of these modulus ones I'll probably messed up a little bit. And okay. I put the and sign there. It should be percentage sign for the modulus. Okay, so that should be good now, hopefully. Let's go ahead and see what this does. Maybe a different error this time, no? Okay, So there we go. So first things is there is way too many of these. So 5 per row. I think it's better to have at least maybe 4. So let's go ahead into the let's open up our front page views, and what we're going to do is we're going to load 8 at a time, and we're going to put, you know, the appropriate column. So LG, we're going to say 8. So if we are on higher resolution, let's just put these to 8. Oh, 8, that's too much. So 12 divided by 4, that's 3. So 3. Okay, and there we go. So now we want to load 8 at a time. So let's go ahead and add a data limit. So we're overriding the limit to 8. Okay. And we're going to do this, and we're going to transfer all of this one by one to the other bits as well. Okay. So now if we refresh, we should load 1 at a time. You can see the image is starting to pop out. It's a little bit too big, so we're going to shrink it in just a second. But the same thing should happen for the other ones as well. So let's go ahead and pop some of this stuff over. We also want to add a load more, so let's actually do that first. So on the div, and then we want a maybe another div. I think this shouldn't be too hard. Just V button. I'm going to say load more. As always, click load content, and then only display this if we're not finished, right? Yeah, I think that's it. Load more. We load more content. Yep, load more, and that probably should have finished. We never flagged the finish because we override this. So if we're here, this dot finished, let's go ahead and set it to true. Okay, so once we reach this, this should finish it. Now let's go ahead and put all this stuff there as well. So let's just copy the button here. Let's put a div. This probably could be abstracted into some kind of other component, although I will just leave it separated out like that because I have a feeling we might want to customize each of these feeds in their own right. Okay, so again, LG 4 on here. The override of let's actually do these one by one. So put this here. Yep, and LG 6. Where did that come from? Did I put 4 in here? What the hell is going on? 3, right? 3 on everywhere. Okay, and let's just remove the space here. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so you can see for these categories and difficulties, they're kind of popping up to the side. So this should just be a line space around, so we can just maybe force them to the center if they're, you know, floating about. So let's just put these up everywhere, and hopefully space around, space line. Maybe this is justify categories. Okay, yeah, so let's put this in other places as well. Cool. So now I guess if we load more, and yeah, at one point these do finish. We got our backflip there, so it's not just overridden by all the other ones. Oh yeah, and you can see here it's kind of, you get trick, and then the other ones are kind of spaced evenly here. So I think that's alright. I think the title gets lost a little bit in there as well. So let's go ahead and make the title look bigger. So let's just maybe pop it to H3. Okay, let's close that. And okay, before I forget, actually, we've been in the middle of transferring over the limits and stuff like that. So let's go do that as well. So limit on the difficulty, a limit on the category, and then we want to also add the finished logic to here, and to here as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and give this a refresh. Yep. So load more doesn't look to be loading there. Load more here. Load more. Okay, and that's good. And categories, the titles are kind of standing out. Maybe I'm gonna put another divider in between them, or maybe not. I think this looks okay. Let's go ahead and fix up these cards a little bit now. On the submission, what I want to do for the user header, let's go ahead and drop some of this stuff down, maybe like this. And I want to say size, if we are in slim mode, do something like 32, and whatever the default one was, 42. Otherwise, do the default. Okay. I think, is that an error? Is there an error in there? Oh yeah, I'm missing the closing quote. Just like that. Cool. So yeah, so that should be a little bit smaller now. Another thing, you can see the rounded corners. So let's go to the video player, and what we're going to do is, oh, I'm actually right here. Must be from the practice run that I had. Let's just put 0 on here, and that should square that out. Another thing is, you probably can notice is there's like a slight elevation here around the submission that we're nesting in here. So going back into the submission on the card here, what we can do is we can provide an elevation, and we can bind it as well, right? Elevation, let's just copy the name, put it somewhere here, copy slim, put it here, grab elevation again, replace the slim, make this a string, required false, default, I don't actually know what the default is, but let's just put it to 8 or something like that. And then on the submissions here where we put them on our content feeds, let's go ahead and just say elevation 0. Right, so just don't elevate it, man. Oh, delete it, deleting the wrong thing. Okay, there we go. So let's just go ahead again, front page, we are on category, let's grab the other two, and let's just make sure that we put the same thing here, right? Just space these out as well. Same thing here. So we're finding ourselves editing the 3 different components with the same changes. Again, I'm just gonna say I probably want to keep them the same, right? Because there is slight changes in here and with the route and the way that we load content, but generally, I don't know if we'll need to, if we want to aggregate them under one roof. Now this should smooth it out more or less. Okay, I think I want to put a divider here. So V divider on the difficulty feed as well, and on the category feed as well, right? So just a line through here, right? So I think that looks a lot better. And now that we got these, I think everything else works more or less fine. Let's just walk a little bit through editing this screen actually. So while we're here and we're doing, styling work, this button, let's put it in the center, right? Trick info card, where we have this button here. Let's go ahead and just say div class deflex justify center, right? Put it in the center. Yeah, cool. And then this button, you can see it's quite big. Let's go ahead on our submission, and where we have the sign into comment, let's just make it small, right? Looks a lot better. Now, for the navigation bar and the search, let's go ahead and implement that. Right, let's close all of this. In the components, let's go ahead and create a new nav bar search component. Let's go to the default here. We'll copy the spacer. Let's make them self-closing actually. Oh, I like it more. Nav bar search, close it off, and cool. So here we're gonna use the V autocomplete feature, or the element that Vuetify provides, and here we're gonna, let's go ahead and build it up, right? So we can refer to the documentation. It's you can think, oh man, it's cheating. No, you gotta read the docs, mate. Autocomplete. Let's take a look and get away, man. What the heck? Okay, probably shouldn't have clicked on that one and this one. But anyway, let's go to we want to check out the directive and this bit here. So the things, anything that I'm not going to be confident around, we're going to look up. But first of all, kind of it's looking a little bit silly right now. So let's start with filled. And I think I wanted rounded as well. The default what's called navigation bar, let's remove the dents from there if you had it. So that's gonna make it look a little bit like that. So one thing is on here at the bottom, you'll have like a little slot thing. I don't know what, I can't remember what it was, so I'm gonna look it up. I think it should be error message, hide details. So it will be this thing here. Let's go ahead and just put hide details on here. So this should remove the thing in the bottom, and cool. So at the moment it is quite big. So let's just make it dense here, right? So woof, cool. This thing at the end, so that is probably append whatever. So append icon, and we'll just set it to none, so that's fine. And prepend inner icon, I think we on the category trick list, yeah, so we already used MDI magnify. Let's grab that and prepend that icon. So that's what this is going to look like, and now we want to supply the data. Okay, so the two main things about this is there is going to be the item that we want to supply, right? And there's also a template for the item. So this bit here, we can change how we display it, and we can basically we bind the item as well, right? So we're not so interested in this. We're more interested in displaying the proper thing here. And another thing that we're interested in is the filter function, right? So let's just copy the signature here for the filter function. This is how we choose what we want to display, right? So on the methods, let's go ahead and search filter. Let's put the signature here and leave it there. Next thing, we will go to the computed, and in here, first thing is we want to map state tricks, and let's go ahead and do the import, and we'll just do lists, right? So always check that navigation, right? So items, right? What do we want? Let's go ahead and create a function outside of here. Const, this will be a item factory, and let's go ahead and assign a lambda to it, which we can use to create a bunch of items, right? So the main things that I want to search by is the name and perhaps the other stuff that we can put in there, like description or, you know, the type and stuff like that. So we're going to start slow, and if we want to add more stuff to it, we will. So let's just do name, type, and I think if we want some navigation, we just want to make sure we grab the correct slug. So name, type, route or path. Yeah, let's just put route. So on the route, you can do something like type and maybe slash slug. So if it's category, we're going to go to the category. If it's trick, we're going to go to the trick. And another thing, we're just going to put a search index on here, which is just going to be a, let's say, a name, or let's wrap this name plus type to lowercase, right? So when we construct the item, we create the search index, which we can basically look up if something is in this index. Let's just go ahead and get this item. So this is going to go through the search filter, right? So let's go ahead and first display a bunch of stuff. So on the template, the slot, again, if you don't know what to display in here, in the slots, you look up what it's going to give you. It's going to give you an item on an address. In here, we're going to use this slot, and we're going to get our item. Let's just get the on and the utters as well, because we are going to override the vlist item. In here, vlist item content is the thing that I wanted. and the spacer, so I'm gonna have to. So generally how I wanted to make this look is the item will have the name, so that's going to be on one side, and then the type is going to be on the other side, right? So you can see the name and then the type, so what it is, and then you can just navigate to it. So because it's a vlist item, let's go ahead, say v on and atters, whatever that is. Let's just apply the atters, otherwise, you know, it's gonna explode. Also, too, we can just add this. So on the item, we are going to have our route. So, you know, we can just bind the route. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. No data. Oh yeah, we didn't actually supply any data. So let's return an array, and here we can concat. So what are we actually adding? We want to go to our lists, and let's say tricks, and we want to map all of our tricks to the item factory, right? So we will supply stuff like name. For the type, we can just say trick, and for the slug, it is going to be slug, right? And we can copy this a couple of times because the same thing is going to happen for categories. This is going to be a category, a name, and this is going to be an ID. Difficulties, same thing here. So we want to map this to difficulty, and this is going to be an ID as well. Okay, and here are our items. So we can actually grab these items and we can bind them here. So items, and there we go, right? So let's take a look at this now, and there we go. So one thing you can see is a little bit wonky there. Let's justify right here. So let's give this a refresh there. Are you kidding me? What is this? Align self and justify right. Was it display flex? I guess I don't get my justify right. Okay. Is that not what it is? Flex justify. Right somewhere in here. Nope. Justify. Okay, so not right end. Okay. My bad. My bad. Alright, so any other information we want to display in there, we can. So let's give this a quick refresh. Okay, so there it is. So that is how I want it to look like. So we have categories, difficulties, ID. So if we can do stuff like fake, you can see at the moment it's not really doing it because usually it would do it by the text field. So this item text, here we're going to do something different. So because I've already practiced it and I kind of refined the search of what we're going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and jump to the end solution. Just keep in mind that I didn't just think of this in one go. This was a couple of tries. I tried the search and I wanted it to work a certain way. So just to give you an idea, what I want to do is I want to be able to type in fake and maybe 0 after it, and for fake trick, trickery, trick 0 to show up. Okay. So let's go ahead and first what we're going to do is for the query text that is coming in, let's go ahead and split it by space, right? Let's say var or maybe const query parts and query text. We will to lowercase it, and then we will split by space. Okay, so that is going to give us a bunch of parts. And now what we want to do is we want to say if the search index contains all of these parts, go ahead and return it. And only do this if we actually have these query parts, right? Otherwise, you can just return true here. Okay, so otherwise, let's go ahead, query parts. And what we want to do with our query parts, each one of these is an individual string. What we can do is we can say, let's reduce this, right? So we're going to say, or not, maybe not reduce, let's map these first. So we want to say, take each individual part and we want to convert it to a Boolean. Is this present? Or do we have this thing? the way that we can do this is we can grab the part, let's name it X, and we will say the item that we have, let's grab the search index and index of, and do we have the X in there? So is it bigger than -1? So this is going to give us a bunch of booleans, and then what we can do is we can just go ahead and again reduce this stuff, and we can just say A and B, right? So together, are all of these parts essentially present? So first we check all of them, and then we aggregate them with a reduce. Okay, so trick, obviously first time nothing ever works, primarily because you gotta take the search filter and you gotta actually bind it. So let's go ahead, put it there. And there we go. So if we search for tricks, the categories, unless the category or difficulty is going to be called a trick, then it's not going to pop up. The next thing is something like roll, so that should appear, and then fake and 0. So you can see that appears there, 4, 5. That's the kind of search that I wanted, and I think that's the kind of thing. I mean, if I want to add any other term to search by, I just go ahead and add it to the search index when I create the item, and you can do this. I mean, you can use this method as well. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. The navigation, let's check the navigation. So that was a little bit unexpected, maybe fake trick. So that being said, there is a little bit worrying. Let's just go ahead and provide a text empty here. So let's pop to the start, and we'll do something like hard, maybe, or no. Okay, so if we provide an empty text here, what it's going to do is it's gonna basically use that as the ID, and now all of them have the same IDs, and I mean, it's a disaster, right? So just set the name here. Let's go ahead and say we want to navigate to 1. We enter that there. If we want something else, a little bit concerned that all of that stuff still was displayed there when we clicked on it, right? So, but I mean, it's not too bad. Let's check if we can navigate to all of them, and we can. So, I mean, I'm quite happy with the search functionality. As the prototyping stages go, you kind of leave it there. You try to use it a little bit. I mean, if you see any issues, go ahead and fix it, right? But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with it. So, anyway, this will be it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the comment section or join my Discord server. I stream on Wednesdays and Sundays. You hear this every episode you watch. So don't forget to join, man. Come on. I'm waiting for you. And as always, see you in the next episode.